It's a very special episode on TUT Pod. I don't think that we've ever had such an episode or will ever have such an episode in the history of TUT Pod. I have a special guest. Her name is Adenike Oyetunde Lawal. She's an author, a lawyer, a radio host, and a government worker. Welcome to the show, Adenike.
Thank you.
And also with her is her sign language interpreter. Mr. Bayo. Mr. Bayo, you're looking very good today.
As you
love
sharp.
the suits. Adenike Oyetunde. I was looking forward to this episode because you're not a small fry in this hustle. You're quite popular in the industry. Before your position with the government, you were on radio for a long time. And we all know that your life is a whole inspiring story. But for some people who don't know the story, at 20, your life changed.
Completely.
Tell us a bit about this story.
Oh, wow. Okay, so let me sound like we usually do in at Nigerian events. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm a huge listener of your podcast.
Thank you so much.
And I think that you're doing an amazing job with the kind of conversations that you are having with all the guests. A variety of perceptions, personalities, opinions. And I like that you are welcoming. A few times you say, no, let's not go there. But it's really beautiful to watch and to see, and to find me worthy to be here. I do not take it for granted. Thank you. I had to pour that water on the ground first.
Thank you. This is where you water, so you water and way. Thank you.
Okay, so when I turned 20, I went home on the weekend. It was weekend. I was in University, Olabisi Onabanjo University, Osu.
Yeah.
And I just had a fall. So what had happened was my parents stay alone because I don't have siblings, literally. So I went to school. Yeah, I'm an only child from both my parents. So I went home that weekend and I realized that they had not had power for a long time. So all their barrels of water, my mother, they store water. If you go to a house now, you go see water for inside cup. I know they lie. So even when there's flowing water, it's something about the scarcity mentality. I'm still trying to, make her unlearn. So that weekend, I was about to set out. Electricity was restored. So I just figured, good child. I cannot leave the house just like that. Let me help them fill their barrels. So I decided to help fill their barrels. So I filled all the barrels and I was carrying the very last bucket. I wasn't supposed to even turn it, just to carry it and then drop it. And somehow I just slipped and then I fell. My dad was in the living room with a guest and I screamed and both of them, rushed to me. Was it hard fall? It was really a hard fall.
Yeah.
They helped me get up. Are you okay? I'm okay, but my leg, yada, yada, yada. I took analgesic and then I went to school. This was a Sunday. Now, till date, I have struggled, I have tried, I have prayed, I have searched. I have no recollection of anything that happened between Monday up until Thursday. So Thursday morning is the only thing I remember till date as I sit here. I had classes and my very good friend Tayo used to pick me up for the classes. So Tayo will come get us at 9 and I'm always early. So at 6:30 past 6 and everything, my roommate noticed that I hadn't gotten out of bed, which was very weird. So I just told her, slow morning. Past 7, I made an attempt at I just noticed I couldn't get up, like what's going on. So I didn't count it to mean much. Long story short, the trip that I should have taken me to school he ended up bringing me up to Lagos because I just couldn't walk. So he literally had to carry me in his arms and brought me to Lagos. Brought me to Lagos, took me to the house. Of course, they were not expecting me. There was nobody at home. The house was locked. So I had to stay in my neighbor's place. And then I just called, I'm in Lagos. What are you doing in Lagos? You just left. My mother, I didn't say anything because I'd already started to learn how to manage her because of my high blood pressure.
Right.
So I told my dad that, I had that follow. I don't know what's going on with my leg. Okay, no problem. Friday morning, I show up at the hospital in Ikoyi. Oh, get an x-ray done, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I got an x-ray done. Oh, because of the fall, we can see a blood clot. We need to drained it. And then in a few days, I was heading back to school. This time my dad went to drop me in school. And then they had taught me how to clean because of the drainage site. So it meant that I needed to clean. So I said, oh, don't worry, I'm not going to clean myself. There's one hospital around my hostel in school. I'll always go there. I was getting better.
Right.
2 weeks or so afterwards, I just realized that the pain became excruciating again. I called them. This thing isn't getting better. I'm not sure. Because my dad now said he wasn't happy at the way I was sounding about the, extent of pain. Because he kept asking me on a scale of 1 to 5. And, I'll say 4, 5. I'm like, this is not getting better. I'm coming to get you. So he came to get me from school. Went back to the hospital, had another x-ray done. And incidentally, was the same thing. Oh, they're sure that they did not properly drain out the blood. We have to have another drainage done. And this time it was now a major drainage. And I saw the blood koro in my eyes. It was dark. It wasn't the regular red color of blood. So I went back to school and I just never got better. Went back to school. My father eventually had to come get me again from school. And by the time we went back to the hospital, I just told my dad that I'm not sure what it is, but I feel like there's something going on. So my father and I stole my file from the hospital because I realized that they were hesitant. But they were insisting that they were going to refer me to the National Orthopedic Hospital at Igbobi. So they then referred us. But the hesitance with which, I wanted my file. So we stole the file, literally, my dad and I. But medical jargons, you know how they are handwriting. So we took it home. Got home, my neighbor who's a nurse came to the house, and then I excitedly just gave her the file. And I noticed a difference in her countenance. It just changed. That's when I knew there's something going on here. Went to Igbobi eventually, had some tests. This time biopsy was done, another drainage, blah, blah, blah. A few days I went back for the test and it was there. The doctor walked in with another colleague of his. I was sitting down and then my father was beside me. And then man just said, oh, young lady, what you have is cancer. And the only way out is to amputate it. And it just felt like I levitated, like my spirit left my body. I remember so well. It just felt like I levitated and, I was like, these ones don't even know what they're saying.
Yeah.
So I just looked at my dad and my dad was crying. I'm like, wait, you mean you made my father cry? I was supposed to look at my dad and my father was supposed to confirm to me that these guys don't know what they're saying. Let's get out of here. But there he was crying. And the man just said, oh, today is a Wednesday. I would like to book you for an appointment for a surgery on Saturday. It was in that moment, and I said, oh, young lady, I'm talking to you. And I remember my response to him was, you're not talking to me. You cannot be talking to me. Like, even if you did tell me to come take out my littlest finger, this little finger, I would need days and weeks and months
to think
about it. But you're telling me that I have to amputate a limb, like make it make sense. And at this time, it was just my knee. It was only my knee. So I'm like, oh, let's go. They don't know what they're doing. Igbobi, somehow the narrative, I still think is out there that anything that has to happen in Igbobi, once they don't know what they are doing, they just cut it off. Yeah. So again, I heard that narrative and, I held on to it. Moment, we couldn't tell my mom.
Right.
Moment we got home, my mom was like, what's going on? What did they say? Blah, blah, blah. But somehow, there's just 3 of us. My mom was the only one who was, I think we should listen to the doctors. Me, I was like, they don't know what they are saying. You people should leave me alone. So from Igbobi, I stayed at home for a while. Somebody introduced me to Trado Medical, blah, blah, blah. For many months. At this time, my father had just newly retired from government work. So he retired as a civil servant level, blah, blah, blah. But he had attained the number of years. And my mom's business was experiencing an epileptic period. So my father was the major breadwinner. And he had just retired. So the lump of his gratuity, we had to take to now finish up his house so that we could move into his house because we're staying in the government quarters. And they had given us the number of days. At this time, he wanted to vie for a chairmanship position. So he needed to exit sooner than we had anticipated and did not mention to my mom. So my mom just got wind of it that, we were exiting and my mom like, I don't understand. We can't be exiting sooner than when my dad shows up. He now said, he forgot to tell her that he wants to become the chairman of so and so local government. So he had to, government rules, he has to leave between blah, blah, blah number of days before the election cycle begins. So we were in a race against time, basically. So, and I say all of this because that gives a, perspective into where we were financially.
Yeah.
So Igbobi, back home, Tradomedical, we were spending so much. Someone introduced us to one man. Unfortunately, rest his soul now, he's also late. And every time he will come, this is the week that something is going to happen. This is the week that is going to... At this time, my leg had started to swell.
From your knee?
Yeah. So it was swelling upwards to my thigh.
Right.
So he will come and say, this is the week he's going to compress. This is so excitedly, this is the week, this is the week, this is the week. We did that for months. Somehow, luckily, there was ASU strike. So, yes, I had missed a semester, but it was epileptic. They'll go on strike, they'll come back, they'll go on strike, they'll come back. Long story short, I found myself at Abeokuta because my friend said they have this prayer person that can help. Now, remember, I'm an only child. So it meant that anything and anywhere solutions, we will go. People, from a place of love, people, all those things we watch in movies.
Yes.
Real. I heard things, I saw things, I ate things. I visited only one place, and my visit to that place was what made me realize that, this is a never-ending journey. The moment you start to visit, you will never stop visiting.
Yes.
So it was at that moment that I told my dad, take me back home. But prior to that, I had been to another hospital in Abeokuta. And these doctors know themselves. So the moment I mentioned my name, they already knew who I was. They already knew what the diagnosis from Lagos was. So there was no need to do waste tests. Sent all the scans and everything to my uncle in the US. He came back and, he said, what the person is interpreting is that it is still cancer. At this time, my mom was already, you guys are wasting my time. This is my child. Cut this thing. Yes, my mom was the first person that told us, cut this thing, which is very, very weird and very strange for my mom. But my father and I, so at the point we got to the place in Abeokuta, the man now said that my mother had to carry a sacrifice. And the sacrifice she had to carry it alongside I don't know how to call it in English, is Anwalawo. In the blink of an eye, she didn't even think about it. My mom just said, I will do it. Because the man said, a person that loves me has to do it. My mom just said, I will do it. That was when I knew that we were heading for destruction.
And you're a Christian family?
Incidentally, my father is Muslim. My mom married Christian, but my mother became a Muslim because she got free trip to Mecca.
Love her.
But I've always been a Christian. I've always gone. I have always gone to church since I was 4. My family friends always introduced me to church, Ikoyi Baptist Church. And I just loved this. I loved the genge of church, the Bible stories, everything. So my father did not let me go. He always allowed me go. And I used to stay in Ikoyi. So the most that he would say is, I'm not going to drop you. So Nani then will say, don't worry, I'll take you. So we'll walk from Mosley Road to Ikoyi Baptist Church. And that was how I became. So I'd always been a Christian, always practiced. As a much younger child, I would always only participate in the Salah festivities with my dad, eating in the mornings and then breaking his fast. So when my mom said she was open to carrying the sacrifice, I knew that there was trouble. I said, take me back home. At this time, it had I started to extend high up my thigh and all of it. Go back to Lagos. We had done everything. We had gone church. Somebody had come to tell us that, they are willing to help us. They'll buy a goat, they'll break the leg as a goat's leg. All those things you watch and hear in movies, they happened to me. So when we got back to Lagos, someone else said, this one I've tried church. How don't we try the Muslim way? That there's a prayer place in Ibadan. Why don't we go to the prayer place in Ibadan? Let's go to the prayer place.
This was happening within...
Oh, yeah. So I got back to Lagos. I ended up in another hospital in Ebute Metta. From Ebute Metta was when I headed for the Muslim place in Ibadan. Was at the Muslim place in Ibadan, one of the nurse at this time, or rather prior to this time, I had seen something like a pimple. I remember that the tradomedical guy had been telling me that the thing is going to shrink. One day, just going. So the moment I saw that, this is how this thing is going to burst. And so I quickly helped the thing to. But that little thing that was a pimple became an ulcer. There was a massive hole in my leg. A massive, massive hole that if I did not dress every single day, if I missed a day, it would start. Because legitimately what cancer is, the cells are growing abnormally. And from the inside, they are beginning to communicate to all the cells around that this is how we're supposed to grow. It starts to grow abnormally. And it begins to grow and grow and grow and grow. Boom, it dies and boom, that's it. So there was this massive hole. So the nurse, they got to dress the leg at the Muslim place in Ibadan. Called my dad. When the coast was clear, and told my dad that this girl is going to die. Told him point blank, I can never forget, this girl will die. That Obasanjo just brought back some doctors that, they went to train, UCH, that take this girl to UCH. This girl will die in this place. I don't know how my father listened, but I feel like I knew that life was ebbing away. I knew it was very obvious I was dying. And that's why I got to UCH. As soon as they wheeled me, as they were wheeling me, Dr. Alonge saw me and just said, Mr. Alonge saw me and just said, young lady, this is an orthopedic emergency. You are going to die if you're not careful. Got to UCH today. Next day, they were prepping me for surgery. They even took me to the theater. My blood level was so low. They had to bring me back. They had to prep me again, blah, blah, blah. She amputated the leg, did chemotherapy. And
you did chemo after?
Yes. So after amputating it, I had to do chemo. So it started at my knee, and then, of course, it started to extend, and then they had to give it more room just in case. Then they had to do another biopsy on the residual limb just to make sure that they had taken out everything. And then we had to start praying that it had not spread to any other part of my body. Then I started chemo. It was from chemo. I told my father, see, if I miss another semester in school, it means extra year. I must graduate with these people.
Thinking about school.
I'm not going to think about. I was so certain I wasn't going to die. The faith I had, sometimes the challenges where they have, and I say, God, just give me small of that faith where I have that
20.
time. I was just 20, but I was so resolute I wasn't going to die.
When did you finally agree to get your leg cut? Or
yes, I was dying. I was in constant pain. So I just take it away. I don't want anything again. Just get it out of my system. And I think that was the only cry I started to say, like, you guys, I'm in pains. No medication was working. Formalin. I don't know if you know formalin. Formalin is what they used to embalm bodies.
Yes.
They started to use formalin for my leg when I got to UCH. They missed a day. The day that I moved to UCH, I didn't dress the leg on that day. The next day when the nurses came to open to dress, I saw a maggot. So the woman did not know I saw a maggot. She tried to distract me. I said, no, I saw it. It was that day I knew, Auntie, you are dying. Let them take. So cancer is legit just walking around with a dead body part. That is not just dying, but it has the propensity to make every other part die. So cut off ASAP. So the moment it was out, the next thing was pump her body with chemo. Somehow they said that the way it was growing, they didn't think it was aggressive, because if it had been aggressive, I wouldn't have had all those months within which we're just moving from one place to the other. So it was more a level 1 and 2 cancer. So they just said, let's do chemo. We'll do chemo. After doing chemo, we'll check, and just to make sure. I was really praying against radiotherapy. Really praying against it. And thankfully, I took 4 courses of chemotherapy. And for my last course of chemotherapy, I just told my father, please, I'd already packed my things in the car. Please just take me to school, because I did not want to miss graduating with my set.
Girl, like, you're trying to save your life. Like, what is?
I knew I was not gonna die.
Please. I know. This your faith can move mountains.
That faith of that type, the way I did, I don't understand.
But let's quickly sip some Lipton. Yeah, thank you, Lipton, for keeping it refreshed and allowing us experience human connection. There's so much joy. Like, I love the joy, but I want to put myself in your situation. If I went through this, I don't know if I would have because this was you were a Christian. You're still a Christian.
Yes.
You're a Christian before this happened.
Yes.
This was happening. You're still calling on God every other day. Your leg, they cut your leg.
Yeah.
You went through chemo.
God is good.
How did you feel? What was your relationship with God before and after?
It didn't change. I'm going to be very honest with you. And wherever my former neighbor is, Mrs. Adekombi, God bless you. She would always show up at my house in the mornings or evening and just read. All she did was read the Bible with me. Oh, that's all she did. I knew Psalms. Well, name it. Back then, I knew everything. And there was a part that she would always tell me that God is good. And that was the first time I heard it. But I could never relate with it. And I never doubted. I never asked God, why me? I never said, why didn't it happen to me? All of those things, I never did. The only time I thought about why, I was in school and I just thought very randomly, say, now only me they born. Why it not happen to family? Maybe say they get 6 children. But the moment that thought came, and God is bearing me witness, it did not sink. I just thought about it and then I moved. I zoned out. I tell people that a part of my DNA wiring is optimism. And I believe very strongly I got it from my dad. My father is a very optimistic person, a very highly optimistic person. And I believe very strongly that because I saw it in the face of challenges, he would always know that everything will be fine. That I took. And then coupled with my Christian walk, I didn't have a relationship with God. It was, after all of this, I decided to seek a relationship with this person. I was going to church, no doubt. I was always in choir practice. We're always doing presentation. I was very active. But as I got older, I understood that what I did was just activity. I didn't have a relationship. So I sought to know the person of God, such that even the said ex, rest his soul now, he's late. When he showed up, the funny thing, we didn't talk. We didn't talk for many years until I was about to write this book. And I'd been conceiving the idea of writing this book. And the interesting thing is the person who decided to now finally spur me is now my husband. He just said, what's delaying you? I said, I can't type book. And he just said, voice it. I'll transcribe it. This guy voiced over 30-something hours.
Your current husband?
Yes. He voiced over 30-something. In fact, someone asked him recently, his best friend or his very good friend called him and said, what app did you use? He said, Mo, I know use Apple. Now I love the shark me that year. They pressed and play, stop. Baba transcribed word for word. So when I was going to write this book, I remember that I heard my ex's name in my spirit. And then I called his very good friend. Hey, give me so and so person's number. And I got the number. And the moment I called her, hey, hi, this is Adenike. And his response to me was, I've waited 13 years for this call.
Oh, you guys didn't speak for 13
What are we talking about? He said, I'd waited 13 years. I blocked him on everything. Blocked him everywhere.
You're angry?
I believe very strongly that I was. But with time I realized that he didn't really owe me much. What he owed me, he had given to me because I then found out that he made an attempt to show up at the hospital. He showed up at UCH, to be honest. But I feel like he showing up at UCH, he could have just avoided it. Yeah. Because he now came. You could tell that the things that he brought, but his friends had just told him, enter the shop. Because one day when I went for chemo as an outpatient person, I saw it and I smiled. I remember very well. My father said, why are you smiling? I didn't say anything because I could recognize all the things that so it was obvious he walked into that store and just picked up his God. So it felt to me like there was no intention with the visit. So I think that it reignited a form of some semblance of anger in me. So when I called him, we did see. And I told him, I'm writing a book. And I don't know if you want me to write your name. Baba just told me, yeah, go ahead. When I was about to step, he just said, please don't. I'm married now. I don't think I want to drag my wife into it. And I respected it. So I completely expunged anything that had to do with him in the book at the time. And I believe very strongly that he's late now. It still hurts me. I just had very, very interesting circumstances. And I asked myself if I had given him release. And I believe very strongly that the conversation we had that day, there was actually release from both our ends. And yeah.
Stories.
Yeah, so I wrote a book. So in the book, I tried to channel a lot of the house. How did I do it? Yeah. What spurred me? And I would give you a snippet. I think the fact that I am an only child, there was no room for me to be lax. There was no room. I didn't have room to just cry.
I was going to ask, right? Your parents have only you.
Yes.
When this was happening, or even after it happened, were they sort of heartbroken?
Oh, yeah. My
Could you see it in their faces that this?
Oh yeah. My parents were so broken. So when I was living with the cancer, we would take turns to cry. I'll cry. After I finish crying, my mother will cry. After my mother, so we'll take turns. And so we were all in it. However, because my mom couldn't do the physical part of running around government hospital, she stayed back at home. So it was my dad and I that were always doing all the running around. My mom was the one that was trying to still hustle for money. My mom was the one that people would see, we hear that Adenike is not feeling fine. No, please give us account number. It was my mom that was doing all of that. So my parents were very much involved, very, very much involved. My parents were broken, but because I had a semblance of strength,
they fed off
they fed off it very well. Growing up, I remember my mom always say that she will always pray to God that this one that you have given us is going to be more than 10. And I live that prophecy. And for me, I believe that my parents are just excited that I am here. There are too many examples, my mom sees me on television. My mom is a local ninja where she lives. When I was on radio, everywhere she goes, she's just doing,
that's a real mommy.
As my mother is an area person. So my parents they never thought it would happen to them. Yeah. But to now witness what is happening, regardless and in spite of, as the person who's living that life, it really humbles me at the expanse and the greatness of God's love to me, and it extends to my parents. So yeah, my parents they're very, very alive. My father is 70. I still tell him that he doesn't know his real age. All those people that were born when one Oba was on the throne. Yeah, my father is 78. My mom is 66, and it's their 40th wedding anniversary in a few weeks. Wow. Yes.
Let's talk about the reality of being handicapped.
That's not a great word. Thank you for saying that. Let me now use this education.
I beg.
So, yes.
Please,
I've dragged him.
Don't cancel me on this show. I'm so sorry.
No.
I'm joking.
I feel like it's one of the reasons why I'm sitting here is to educate you. So an impairment is basically, this is an organ. This is a system. This is how it's ideally supposed to work. But because there's something wrong, an abnormality, that there's an impairment somewhere.
Yeah.
So a disability is a functional consequence of that impairment. Handicap is the labeling that society has given.
Right.
So usually when you use handicapping terms, it means that you are seeing the disability first before the person.
Right.
That boy with Down syndrome, that boy with, he has a name, Uche.
With a disability.
Uche. Adenike, identify me first as human before you start to highlight the disability. So, in the disability,
is it wiser to say he has a disability?
Just say the person lives with disability.
Oh, right.
Or the person has a disability, actually. Because why I realize that even those of us in disability space, we are not even united. The semantics and the words keep changing per time. So, the most politically sound way to say is persons with disabilities.
Right.
Not even living with disabilities any longer. Persons with disabilities. And it's a word. See, remember when we grew up, Olodo, we sing Olodo Rabata. People have dyslexia. People don't know what it is. Learning disabilities.
Right.
People that wear glasses don't know that they are living with disability. They'll still be fighting.
Join.
Yes. People that wear glasses live with a disability. Yes. So because you can either be totally blind, you can't see, and that's legal blindness, or you have low vision. A lot of people with albinism, albinos have low vision. People with albinism actually are living with disability. And there are people that are partially sighted. All these long-sighted, short-sighted, astigmatism, it is disability. Do you know that people that lisp is a disability? People that omit words, people that substitute words. No, so because I feel like somehow we just think that it's only people that have one leg or one hand.
So this thing you're saying now, I've actually looked stupid because I've not actually thought about it like this, and you're educating me, but I'm like, we as a country, we don't even know these things. That's why there's no provision for anybody. Like, I remember when I was in uni, like we used to have like.
Shout out to Unilag. Shout out to whatever, Queen's College, King's College, all those federal schools that took time to provide for disability, specifically visual impairments.
Yes, in that small community, that we took people with disability very seriously. They had the best rooms. They had people who helped them.
Wow.
Yes, they chose rooms first before anybody else.
Wow.
Like the perfect room on the ground floor.
Shout out to Nigeria Law School VI. I chose my room first.
Yeah. So now coming into like the bigger world, like into legal society, there's no provision for them now. So you almost forget that these people really need more attention, more care, more policies that will help. Are there policies that you guys are still trying to fight to get entrenched into law? What are the things that you guys are still trying to get?
So the reality about it is, as a person, talking about exempting us is not my biggest strength.
Yeah.
The cost of the exemption is what it is I like to emphasize.
Right.
Now in Nigeria, we have an estimated maybe 20-25 million people living with different forms of disability.
Right.
Now, and those disabilities range from physical to health to visual to hearing to learning or different forms of intellectual disability. The ones that we know, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome. Elon Musk is living with a disability. He has Asperger's syndrome, for goodness sakes. People do not even know that they have that or it exists.
What is that? Please educate
so
me.
Asperger's syndrome is it has various spectrums, but a lot of the times they're fidgety. Did you watch Boston Legal? If anybody saw Boston Legal, I can't remember his Hans. That was his nickname. Hans had Asperger's syndrome.
Right.
ASD, autism as well. And on the autism spectrum, for instance, there are like over 100. Many people don't even know what to look out for, what to identify, all of these things. And the reality about it is, a lot of people do not know how close they are to disability than how far they are from disability. All that needs to happen is one diagnosis. Somebody's pregnant with a child and boom, that's it. People don't even know that the process of birthing a child on its own is a trauma. Somebody is just chilling in water somewhere. Next thing, what's going on? So passing the birth canal, if a woman has a successful delivery and nothing happens to that child, it is a miracle. Because the child can actually suffer trauma during the birthing process. There are many people who have children that have suffered anoxia, for instance, shortage of oxygen, and that's it. Their world completely changes forever. Simple. Some people have acquired, like me, adventitious disability. I was not born this way. Some people have communication disability, and is either language or voice or something.
Yeah.
So different types. And the reality about it is, because we don't expose ourselves to the realities of different variations that exist until it hits us, we are unknowingly shutting ourselves out from the economic power that these people can add, the human capital that they can add to this, even with jobs. Now, take education, for instance. The Lagos State government has a special people's laws. It has been in law since 2010, 2011. The federal government has a law that Buhari signed. And one of the most simplistic things are every single person with disability has a right to several things: education, healthcare, access. And access cuts across different things. There are many buildings that are not compliant. Now, the reality, if you hear that Lagos State government has shut down all the stores in maybe on Ajosi Adeogun, for instance, everybody begins to shout, why now? But guess what? Not only had the Lagos State government put the law, has continued to write. I can tell you that the Office of Disability Affairs has continued to write, hoping that shutting down these places will not cut us off economically. But at what point would we not shut down as more than 90% of businesses? I don't know if you've ever walked into a library in this country. Number one, we have a shortage of libraries. Well, when you step into libraries, how many libraries have big prints for people that have low vision? In banking halls, I don't know if you've ever seen anybody on wheelchair use an ATM in this country. They don't consider us. I don't care. They will celebrate 1 week long anniversary. They've never thought about it. No banking hall, no ATMs. You can't even enter the machine, those doors, with your wheelchair. Me, I can't even enter on my crutches. People on wheelchair can't go into the place. So, hello. Education, inclusive education. Some people that have children with disabilities, because it's one of the things that, families that have to be honest. What are the strengths of this child? So if your child can fit into a mainstream school, you will see the school telling them, come and carry me. Do you know how many schools we have shut down, the ones we've reopened, the ones Office of Disability Affairs exists. But again, until people have a need for them to say, oh, the laws are there. The laws are in existence. Let's be honest. It is you and I that are the everyday people who do not do these things. People don't even know that people living with albinism actually live with disability.
Yeah.
Sun is their biggest enemy. As much as we want vitamin D, they must run away from sun. Nobody talks about the cost of applying. They have special creams they have to use. Skin cancer is not a cheap thing to manage. Intellectual disability, for instance, cerebral palsy, if you know what it costs to pay for speech therapy, families are going through things. And one of the best things that we can do as a society is create a space where if I have a child who has graduated university and wants to seek employment and is either visually impaired or has hearing, is hard of hearing, or is deaf, if this person can show value that they can bring something to your business, how about you give them this job? Give them this job. Accommodate them. Create ways where your methods and systems can make these people work. They are so brilliant. If you engage them, they are so brilliant. Their brains work.
What are the things that they need to be held accountable for, like for stores, for malls, for banks, just public places? What are the things that are supposed to be in place so that people are aware that, you know what, maybe I've been doing this wrong and let us try and change?
We all know we've been doing it. I mentioned education. The Lagos state government across the nation is possibly the one that has championing free education for persons with disability. Do we need more? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Healthcare. The Lagos state government, again, has insurance healthcare cover for people living with disability. Should the cover extend to more people living with disability? Definitely. Access to buildings is very simple. Access to buildings include, if you can't build, you can't break down your building. So it means that if you are a one business provider and you do it upstairs, it means that if I come and I can't gain access to you, it should be noted there clearly that our building, our business is not disability friendly. Yes. Your parking space. I drive. Why?
Because ideally, it should have.
So why should I show up? Why should I show up at your business facility and I'm just finding out that there's a flight of stairs? I've never been there before. I just follow you people on Instagram. I say, okay, well, let me enter this. This place. Oh wow. Guess what? Access also includes. I can give you stories. Travel. For me, I always write wheelchair.
Travel.
I always write wheelchair on my ticket. Why? Because I just want to sit down somewhere. I just give them, baggage claim. Yes, 3 bag. You see people that know. Go and bring it. Sitting there. Honestly speaking, that's the only reason why I write. But guess what? People who cannot be lifted from wheelchairs have to be humiliatedly carried from their wheelchairs to ascend into the aircraft.
How is it supposed to be done?
You are supposed to put your aircraft. I don't know that English. That when you're doing international travel, that you just walk into the plane. Do you need to enter up and down? We're walking on tarmac here. So you are seeing what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying now.
Education, schools. Many of these schools, it costs a lot for you to have inclusive education. But there are people who can afford it and are saying, give us, we will pay. But the reality is that not many people can afford. So the Lagos state government has provided primary, secondary, universities on paper is still working. In principle, I'll be honest with you, has not kicked off. But in principle, you are also supposed to get some measure of leverage if you're a person with disability and you decide to go either to Lagos state government or a university or the polytechnic. And I'm promising you that they're going to work on it. I've started conversations about it. What else are the things that we do? Employment. Why on earth should you shortlist me from being employed because I live with a disability? Marketing, for instance, is like me. I'm a person living with albinism and I want to go and join marketing. It's like me, myself, I'm not telling myself the truth because when they're supposed to be under the sun between the hours of 10 and 3, I'm not supposed to be under the sun. I'm supposed to be shielded. So if I ideally go into a place and I want to become a marketer, then you have to find a marketing that works. If you're going to be doing online marketing, get a marketing business that does online, that uses a tool that is good for you, and then go. But what I also realize that people with disability it doesn't appeal to your health condition.
Right.
And you want us to now mandate. It does not work that way. So employment, people need to start coming out. If you are certain that you were shortlisted and because of your disability, they did not take you, come.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for
sharing with us about your life and everything that you have gone through. Thank you for the work that you do with the people with disability.
Yes, that's the word. It takes time.
Yeah, thank you for actually sensitizing me from the beginning, and thank you for
no handicap, no disabled.
Yes.
Identify the person first and then the disability next, because it gives us humanity. I wasn't born with disability, so I should not be tagged the woman with the issue of blood. I have a name. My name is Adenike. That woman with the issue of blood, till tomorrow we know sabi her name. Or that servant name man, we tell name man say make you go back for inside one. Now just the servant girl. No, don't define me by this.
You are Adenike.
My name is Adenike.
A life.
Dasola Oyetunde Lawal.
A miracle.
Hallelujah. Offering time.
Blessing time. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Cheers to
yes
more. And I need that book, please.